Hello, everyone. Good evening and a warm welcome to the discussion on how to become a successful entrepreneur in the investment management industry. This webinar is jointly organized by the CFA Institute and the Hindu Business Line. Running your own business is a dream for many. If you are an aspiring finance professional or a young qualified one looking to venture out on your own, a million questions are sure to cross your mind. What is a good business idea? What business model will work for me? How can I tie up the funding? How much money will I make? How much can I scale? Do I need to be tech savvy? The doubts go on and on. To guide you on the path ahead, we have a carefully curated panel of entrepreneurs from different walks of the financial services industry to share their collective wisdom today. Introducing Mr. Sandeep Gupta, a charter holder from the CFA Institute, USA, with a postgraduate in management from IIM Ahmedabad. Sandeep is the co-founder and chief business officer of Beehive Investec, a fintech platform providing opportunities in alternative investments like commercial real estate. We are also happy to have with us today Mr. Gajendra Kothari, MD and CEO of Etika Wealth Private Limited. He is a CFA charter holder as well, an MBA, and also holds an international certificate in financial advice from London. Mr. Kothari has over 18 years of experience across Indian and overseas capital markets. He was earlier the VP and head products for the portfolio management division at UTI Mutual Fund. We have Ms. Meera Siva, who manages the Shelter Venture Fund at the Tervillager Center for Innovation in Shelter, Habitat for Humanity International. She brings 16 years of engineering design experience in the US and 11 years of financial analysis experience spanning US PE, India listed equities, India early stage funding, and personal finance. She is a CFA charter holder and has an MS in computer engineering. She is a board member of the CFA Society India and leads the Chennai chapter too. We also have a representative from the CFA Institute to complete the panel for us today. Ms. Aarti Porwal is currently Director, Society Relations, CFA Institute. She has worked in various roles in the financial services and insurance industry for 13 years and has also led the operations of the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants in India prior to this. She is an MBA and is also a certified life and leadership coach. A warm welcome to all our panelists. Looking forward to a fruitful discussion today that will inspire all the budding entrepreneurs out there in the audience.
Thank you, Vardhini.
Yeah, so I think it's appropriate to, start with Aarti herself because she is from the Institute. And, today we are looking at entrepreneurship opportunities in the investment management industry. So Aarti, can you broadly define investment management for our audience? Tell them what kind of work it involves and broad areas which are ripe for entrepreneurship here.
The investment management industry per se is considered to be the creme de la creme of the financial services industry, if I may say so. It's like the cherry and the icing on the cake. Extremely aspirational areas for people, most young people, to work in the financial services industry. It generally widely involves anybody who is involved with managing people's or enterprise finances or money. So be it individual wealth or institutional wealth. It could be around people who actually work in terms of analysis to advise or actually do the investment themselves. So it could be people who work on the buy and sell side of the investment management industry per se. It could be people who are portfolio managers or asset managers. It could be also people peripherally who work in areas such as private equity or venture capital funds. Per se, a large number of people working in the investment management industry are involved in wealth management, which is managing individual and enterprise wealth. So this is just a generic definition, I would say, of what the investment management industry is or is considered to be. CFA charter holders work in every aspect of this industry, and the CFA Institute and the CFA program provides people with the competencies to work in this industry. From an entrepreneurship point of view, every one of these areas has some role to play for entrepreneurs. You could be involved in managing either institutional funds or individual funds, advising people how to manage their money or investing on behalf of these organizations. We have here today a wide gamut of entrepreneurs who are CFA charter holders, and their stories will provide us more inspiration and direction as to what entrepreneurship looks like in the investment management industry.
That's right. I think we have live examples here. So, instead of you and I talking about it, I think Sandeep, Gajendra, and Meera should, tell us or tell the audience about the kind of work they have done as an entrepreneur with their CFA charters and the business models they follow and the opportunities in their current areas of work. Sandeep, why don't you, begin?
Thank you so much, Vardhini, and thank you, Aarti. That was a great description of the landscape. And like Aarti mentioned, there are multitudes of opportunities out there in the finance world as well as in the investment world. Investment management is just a subset of the financial world, and both within the financial world and the investment world, the CFA charter does help across, breaking into across categories. Coming to the investment world, like Aarti deliberated, you could be managing institutional funds, you could be managing private funds, you could be a mutual fund advisor, you could be a registered investment advisor, you could be, there are multitudes of things you could do. You could be an insurance seller, and there are so many things that you could do within the investment industry. Coming to my personal journey, so I had a corporate career of almost 2 decades before I took the plunge. And when I took the plunge, it was primarily because I was done with the corporate world, basically. So I was heading commercial for Britannia Industries, part of the Wadia Group, handling a large portfolio of assets and also reporting directly to the promoters and the board. But, after a point of time, a fatigue kind of set in that, hey, this is enough. We have enough to survive now. So that is my journey. Everybody's journey may be slightly different. But now it's something to do with the rest of the time that we have on earth. So let us do something that is something, we can, be proud of at the end of the journey whenever it comes. So that is where I took the plunge in 2018. And, like any wannabe entrepreneur, I wanted to do the most in thing out there at that point of time, which was blockchain technology. So right from a corporate career, I jumped into blockchain technology directly. And of course, I have been approaching Meera over the years and taking her advice as well as a venture fund analyst. She never did any funding for me. But having said that, I got very good advice from her all through the years. So I did fail 5 startups, to be honest. And that is how on my 6th startup journey, we have got reasonable success now. We are doing $2 million of sales on our platform. So the different startups that I did just to lay the journey out there. So one was a pure play investment startup, of course, in a very small scale, like what Gajendra is doing in a very large scale. It was a wealth advisory business across categories like equity, mutual funds, and others. So I took up a distribution license. Of course, I did try to introduce tech into that as well. The other was slightly esoteric, which is stock, this is like a blockchain tokenization of real estate, which was too ahead of its time. Even today, it's too ahead of its time. But, I will circle back to it another 3 to 5 years. And I personally believe that is going to change the world, but not just now. So that is the second learning that I had. So these are all short startups. So this is very important to learn, not just from the successful ventures, but also from what you have failed. Then, of course, I was always inclined towards the real estate side of entrepreneurship and bent of it. And while I had a great corporate career in real estate, it's very important for an entrepreneur to get their hands dirty on the ground level. So I did certain real estate sales personally as well. And that was another startup that I did, which was a profitable startup, but not a scalable startup and not a satisfactory startup. Don't get personal satisfaction out of it. So that is something that I again shut. And then finally, I did a couple of others. Like, there was a startup in fractionalization of hospitality assets. So that is something that I did. It's called fractional rooms. And so these were some of the entrepreneurial things I did. But, then I decided, hey, this is enough of the startup world for the time being. I joined the corporate world back. But because of my startup and technology bent, I was heading innovation at Magic Bricks. I got another position in 2019 and 2019, and I was there for almost a year's time. But because of COVID, things again went slow. And then again, I went back into the same amalgamation of the same ideas. And now I am doing fractionalization of commercial real estate. So that is the current idea. So we've also got a Cat 2 license from SEBI. So that is one of the divisions that we have, allowing institutions to invest in commercial real estate. We've got a fintech platform, which is called Beehive Alts. So that is for retail investors to invest into commercial real estate.
Okay.
And so that's the journey. I think it was a little long-winded, but yeah.
Okay, so probably unlike Sandeep, Gajendra had it very clear in his mind, I guess. So from UTI, he exactly knew what he wanted to do, and he did it, and he scaled up the business and is doing very well. Let's listen to him.
Sure, Vardhini. First of all, thank you, CFA Institute and Business Line, for having me here. I think this is a great discussion because I think this also serves the Prime Minister's agenda of Atmanirbhar Bharat. How can we become entrepreneurs so that we can have more job creation in the financial services industry. Vardhini, my journey, as you rightly said, I come from a Marwadi business family. So, being entrepreneur is in the roots. Of course, my first and only job was with UTI, and that is where I learned all about investments and advisory. And how did it begin was that when I was 24, I was, as a management trainee, I was pushed into a branch of UTI. And on day one, I was asked to, go and do sales. And I never knew about sales. So, back then, UTI was going through its own troubled times, and, the UTI was split up, and there were a lot of angry investors who used to come to our branch with all those files, UTI investment bonds, and would tell that, all my money has gone down, and stuff like that. So I would calm them. And after 1 hour, they would tell me, Gajendra, I have 50 lakhs rupees more. Where should I put? Okay. And that's when I realized that in our country, there is a last mile gap, a huge last mile gap. Even the so-called HNIs, high net worth individuals, they may have the money, but they may not have the knowledge. The financial literacy is just not there. And that's when I realized that if you are able to explain things and concepts in a simple way to the end user, I think there is a great scope out there. That's when, and that was also the time, Vardhini, in our country, I saw a lot of mis-selling was happening. Whether it is a banking space, insurance products, or mutual fund NFOs were being sold, which I was somehow not comfortable at all. The conscience didn't permit me that, you should be pushing these to investors' throats. So I decided that someday I would like to start my own firm. And 2010 was the year when, I decided to start Etica. Etica is actually a Portuguese word which means ethics in that language. And the simple idea of starting this firm was that I will show my investors, my own portfolio, where I put my own money, and will tell them this is what I've done with my and my family's money, and this is what I would recommend you. I don't think you need to explain anything beyond this then. There's no marketing required, there's no selling required. It's how much conviction you have, So that's how I started. And till date, Vardhini, we show our own portfolio to all our investors. We show in all the IIPs, investor awareness programs we do. We don't try to give any gyan or anything. We just show that this is last 10 years, the journey that we have traveled to. It's both good and bad in the sense, when markets were down, our portfolio was bleeding the worst actually. But then investors understand and then stay by us. In this journey, it's been very fulfilling in the sense that you're not just helping people. See, I've realized that, in our lives, 90% of the problems in our lives are connected with money, somewhere or other. And if we can help solve this puzzle in somebody's life, I think it's a great, I would say, act you've done. So you feel deeply satisfied also. Yeah. So more than this business, I would say it's a passion, and it's a wonderful journey. Today we are managing around 5,000 families in the system, and so every day is like a play and not work, I would say.
Okay. So you rightly said that 90% of the problem comes from money. So Meera is there, providing money to all startups. So we will ask her about her entrepreneurial journey. She's also done 1 or 2 things before she came into this, I guess.
Yeah, thanks, Vardhini. And thanks again. It's a great topic. And entrepreneurship is a very broad subject. We hear about entrepreneurship, various programs, but this one being focused on the investment management side, right, helps bring a more focused discussion. Right. So, I was an engineer, and I worked in various firms. And along the way, as Gajendra did, right, I was realizing that there is a bit of a gap in the early stage investment cycle, right? Many people were becoming entrepreneurs. I'm talking the 2013, 14, 15 kind of time frame. And even now, right? I mean, the number of entrepreneurs is sort of growing. It's very aspirational. And recently the minister was said to have said that being an entrepreneur is more searched in shadi.com, not even IAS, right? So, entrepreneurship is very aspirational, but people just lack the financial, right, wherewithal. Entrepreneurship requires a lot of hats, and right, you need the idea, the market understanding, working with customers, branding, and it's tough, right? The one problem that one can solve as an outsider is finance, which tends to be a little organized, and one needs to be logical about it and not be emotional about it, and that is very tough for an entrepreneur on one side and the investor on the other side, right? Like so that was the gap that I saw, and then I started this, co-founded Rana Investment Advisor with Nalina Kanti, right? Who we together we saw this gap, and we worked on 3 verticals. So that was our business model on how our revenues came from. One, working with the founders on an advisory model. It was not an investment banking model where we were paid for success, because we felt that there is a possibility that you may get swayed to say, oh, you need to raise $1 million, when actually all they needed to raise at that point, without giving up a lot of stake, was probably like, $100,000, right? So, so we found that if our incentive was not tied to how much they raise, or we may put them into deals and like want it to be closed, because only then we'll get paid, right? Whereas the better advice would have been just walk away, right? Like, so it was a advisory model of getting paid through a retainer or the hours done and all that. So that was one, which found a lot of traction. And, as Sandeep was also saying, that I never got him money. Maybe, that was probably not the right thing for the business, right? So that, that's the idea is sometimes to be ready first before looking for money. The other is working with angel investors and doing due diligence and analyzing the business a bit more thoroughly before putting in money, rather than on a hope and prayer and then getting disappointed that people didn't deliver, because people have all this, they read in the paper that this became a unicorn, that became, and then they are like, well, why is my investment not becoming a unicorn, right? So just being realistic, working with them, a bit of what Gajendra said on some financial knowledge, imparting to them, and the other one was working with organizations like TAI and Siki, which try to work with entrepreneurs and support them, but they need the market, the opportunities, and right, trying to bring out that knowledge and that. So and I feel for anyone who's looking to become an entrepreneur in this, there are a lot of opportunities, because there are a lot of gaps, and you could, like Sandeep, be a serial entrepreneur and learn things. That's the best. I mean, I'm so proud of Sandeep and him, saying it like that. Or you could, go and volunteer in any of these incubators or various programs, because entrepreneurs are always looking for people with financial knowledge, and right, you could get your thing better. Like Gajendra put his own money, family money. Here you just have to invest some time and work with entrepreneurs and get yourself launched. So,
okay, that was beautifully explained. This is the other side of the story, isn't it? So so good to have an idea or a perspective on what the 3 of you did. So Sandeep, coming back to you kind of said that you went in for the very advanced, ahead of time, blockchain tech-based startup very early on, but Gajendra actually took the more tested route of wealth advisory or distribution. So, often people, your finance professionals aspiring to be entrepreneurs may have this thing, whether they should always look for fancy ideas. Meera was also, talking about the validating ideas. So, should the idea always be new and never done before kind of a thing? Or how do you vet an idea?
You want me to take that?
Yes, Sandeep, and anybody can take this also.
Yeah. Sure. So to be very honest, whenever there is a change, that is where new frontiers open up. That is where pioneers can capture the market. And it is always a truth. If there is a regular kind of a business as usual model, while Gajendra has succeeded and others have succeeded through perseverance and push, but whenever there is a change happening in the environment, that is when a huge amount of opportunities start opening up. And if you can ride that wave successfully, you can capture a new frontier or a new market totally. So that has always been a driver for any kind of progress that happens. Having said that, whenever a new technology comes, there will be multiple untested use cases of that technology. And there is a huge interplay between technology and entrepreneurship and regulations. So even today, if you ask me, I am very, very excited about the technological solution that I can bring in the market through what I had envisaged then. But unfortunately, till the regulatory environment does not stabilize around that, it is not feasible from a business perspective to go and implement that idea. So an entrepreneur actually has to think of multitude of things. So while the opportunity is lying there, is it a monetizable opportunity?
That's right.
You make a business around it at this point of time in the current market scenario and in the current regulatory framework. So that is something that was a great learning because of what I did. But you have to try. Sometimes you cannot predict how the regulations are going to flow. If you are in the right place at the right time and the regulatory support comes or it opens up while you have already done a lot of groundwork, you can simply catapult into a pole position in that industry.
So it's a trade-off, I think, which, between having a very great idea or having a normal idea and executing it well, isn't it? So Gajendra, I think, will give us the other side of the story on.
For me, Vardhani, I think it was very simple. This was a felt need. While I was in UTI, in very first month, I met around 30, 40 investors, and all I could see was that there was no guidance at all. There was no rightful advisor or some trusted advisor who was guiding them. So, and luckily, I felt that I had the skill set to match that. Okay. And I still feel wealth management is a very sunrise space in our country, with a size of population. And when we're talking about growing to a $5 trillion economy and $10 trillion in the subsequent years, substantial wealth would be made all along, right? You can be good at creating wealth. You can be good at kind of creating wealth, but to manage that wealth requires a different kind of a mindset altogether. And that is when you require a trusted advisor. So for me, it wasn't an idea that was to be tried, and I could see that there's a potential demand out there. And because I worked with UTI for 7 years, I knew what mistakes not to make. I was a part of the industry anyways. It wasn't a different or foreign kind of thing for me. So it was a very natural progression, I would say.
Okay. Meera, you already told us, you went from being an engineer to a, you were a research analyst. Now you're a columnist and all that. So we also have an audience question. As you have been talking, I've been looking at the questions, and there's already a question asking, I'm a fresh young finance professional. So, can I become an entrepreneur right away, or should I go get WorkX? So, Meera, what is your view on this?
So the part of it was answered by Sandeep and Gajendra, right? Like,
because they both have WorkX. That's why I'm asking you.
Yes.
So,
WorkX has its, and I would call work experience not as the years done somewhere, right? Like, do I have work experience? No, right? I mean, my 16 years is of no use when you are in the finance industry, right? So, we have to define it as relevant experience and the skill sets, right? So that is quite important. And one advantage of having that is, the opportunity may present itself, as Gajendra was nicely explaining, that's the gap, and right, which was also kind of what happened with me, right? That, I was seeing these startups, and I found that, hey, who is doing this? And right, there seems to be a huge gap here that's happening in that industry, because you follow it and then the problem comes directly to you, right? And maybe you have picked up some other skills, like how do you build a team? And sometimes you have some brand recognition that people may say that, oh, this person was ex Goldman Sachs, right? Whereas if you have no work experience, that all those could be a disadvantage in some sense. But let's go to the other side, right? Like, if you have no work experience, right, you're sort of fresh. Actually, that could be a blessing, right? Because you'll have that humility and that learner's mindset. And then, right, you will say, okay, I don't know, let me ask the right people, and right, bring them on board, get the mentorship. And then you don't know that something cannot be done, or right, something is not how whereas people with experience may say, this is how it works, right? Without understanding the landscape has changed a bit, and then there is an opportunity, right? So I would say that it could be good if you are fresh, but ideally, right, I don't want to say on one hand, on the other hand sort of a thing, but my opinion is that it helps to get your relevant experience, because right, doing is quite important. That's why programs like the CFA charter require some amount of work experience, and not just passing the exam to give you the charter, right? Because everyone even in CA, Vardhini, right, you have to do your hours, right, to get that, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, articleship and all, right? Or you could work, you could volunteer, or you could be a serial entrepreneur, right? Like, as Sandeep did. Somehow you get your experience, right? Get your gray hair in my case, and I don't know what to say for Sandeep. Yeah. So get your hair taken off through all of this process.
Okay,
right?
so it comes with its pluses and minuses.
Yeah. So but the important thing is be curious to learn, right? And be part of groups that would spark that for you, one way or the other, right? So that, you may be fresh, but then if you're closed, it's just not going to help you. Yeah.
If I may add to that, Vardhini, the question of whether to start without experience very early in your career or later on is also dependent on ensuring that your ability to manage the risks and returns of being an entrepreneur. I'm sure Gajendra, as a wealth advisor, will be better equipped to mention this, but you have to take an individual call as to whether you are in a position to manage the risks of being an entrepreneur. And the key risk of that probably is that you do not have a steady income, especially in the early years. It's not a secure income. So if your life stage is such, or your family conditions are such that you are able to manage that risk, then that is taken care of, and you can then enjoy working on your entrepreneurial idea and progress towards enjoying the returns. So an early start that way is very useful in life, because earlier in your life you have lesser responsibilities possibly, or family responsibilities, or wealth related responsibilities, so you can be better equipped to manage the risk of an unsteady income that you might face in the early years of your entrepreneurial journey. So that's an advantage of starting young. The other thing that I'd like to reiterate is what Meera mentioned, is that it's not about experience, it's the relevant competence that is important, whether you have garnered that through an education or through experience. Especially in the investment management industry, because you're dealing with people's wealth, which in terms of a personal asset is the second most important thing after health, then you definitely need to be sure that you are competent enough. Like a human being will not go to a doctor who does not have a proper professional qualification. Similarly, a person should not be trusting their wealth with a person who is not equipped to manage it. So you yourself need to be confident and be able to focus and produce, then articulate that confidence and ability to be able to manage people's or institutional wealth.
Okay. So we had quite a few angles discussed for the audience to understand what entrepreneurship is all about. One question in this discussion which comes up again, we did have Meera did touch upon it, because she was talking about funding and the how evaluating businesses. Maybe Sandeep didn't make the cut in Meera's mind, so he didn't get the funding. So typically, all entrepreneurs have this worry as to where they will get the funding from. So I would like to hear from all the panelists, from our entrepreneur panelists. So how do you go about this key requirement once you get an idea and you're convinced about the idea, you have your work ex, you don't have your work ex, whatever. So how do you go about this key requirement? And you do have private investors, but does in India, is there any state support for entrepreneurship in the financial services sector, especially?
So I'll probably
Meera, can you? Yeah. Okay, Sandeep. Yes.
I'll leave to Meera since she's working for a venture fund.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it is the key need for raising finance. So that is also something that has to be understood. And like Meera rightly pointed out, if a company does not need that kind of a money, maybe raising that kind of money too early is also going to be a bane rather than a boon. Because then the DNA of the company changes. So unless until you actually struggle and understand what is it that you're actually trying to create, you may be creating something that is not wanted by the market. And every venture fund has their own perspective and they have their own mandate as well. It is nothing is free in life. You have to be able to earn. It is not free money out there, because they also have fiduciary to their investors at the end of the day. And money will come when you are ready for it to come. And the idea has to prove itself. The product market fit has to happen. The idea has to be validated. So as an entrepreneur, at times you will feel very frustrated. Hey, this is a great idea. It's my baby. I persevered so hard for it. Why is nobody funding me on this? There's a lot of frustration that comes out there. But you must understand that is the process that an entrepreneur must undergo. Because unless until he goes through that grind, he will not understand what is it that gets money. And when that comes, that is also coming because you have proven to the investor that I have a fair chance of increasing the amount of money that you are investing in me. Again, different investors have different mandates and they have their different theses. But unless until there is an iota of chance that you will deliver on their mandate, they will never give you money. So you have to prove the idea, you have to prove the execution of that idea, and then money will flow. So that is from a fundraise perspective. I will let Meera answer the next one about the government supports and things out there.
Yeah,
Okay.
Meera.
Yeah. So I always tell everyone to also to Sandeep's point that the best money is your customers' money, right? Because that they don't take share of you, right? They don't request all these things of you, and it shows traction and all of that, right? But compared to the past, there is more government grants and others. Past is not some 50-year ago past. I'm even talking about the 2015 18 to now. In the last 3 years we have seen a lot more. And Vadni, recently you may also have seen this Prime Investor, right, which is an investment management focused company started by folks, former Business Link colleagues as well. They got a prize and some financial incentives from the Tamil Nadu state government. And there's also this Center for Excellence, Financial Center for Excellence, which is an incubator focused on financial service and investment management kind of startups right here in Chennai. So there are many such institutions and organizations. Of course, there's a lot of competition also, because there are lots of entrepreneurs with lots of ideas vying for these, but definitely there are opportunities that people can look for. It's not very dry, and all state government, central government, various foundations are all committed to working with good ideas. And in investment management, for example, if there are ideas that are impactful, right, like trying to work with some disadvantaged groups like women, or people with disability, or low income people, or housing for there are different segments where there are specific grants and opportunities that are available that one can certainly explore. Yeah.
Okay. So the other key set of things for entrepreneurs, we are talking of, having a finance qualification and all that, but I'm sure Aarti will agree. So finance qualification may be just a window to, understanding some need or a gap in the financial services sector and then trying to be an entrepreneur in that space. So how does, being an entrepreneur, as has been discussed, needs a wide span of knowledge across domains. So, for example, Sandeep here has is a certified investment performance measurement professional. Gajendra is a chartered alternative investment analyst. So, Aarti, do people need specific qualifications? Just having a finance qualification may not be enough for the wide role that an entrepreneur needs to play?
For whether it is for entrepreneurship or for employment, there are basically two what we call the T-shaped skills that make you competent. Those consist of a depth of technical knowledge to the extent that is required to perform your job. And second is the soft skills, or the skills that are related to leadership as well as communication, etc. So professional qualifications like CFA or CIPM, which is again a CFA institute run program, which Sandeep has qualified for, are professional qualifications that equip you with sufficient depth in terms of the technical skills. In terms of things like leadership skill or skills related to soft skills or your ability to sell, Gajendra was mentioned that that's what got him started. That's not part of the CFA program curriculum per se. Those are competencies that you will need to acquire either through experience or through other programs or through actually learning from a network. Now, that's where the advantage of professional qualifications like CFA come into play. Because professional qualifications connect you to a network of fellow members. And that network is a great breeding and learning ground for people to talk to other entrepreneurs, talk to other investors, like Sandeep found Meera through that network. Pitch your ideas irrespective of whether you receive fund or not. Of course, just being a fellow member, as is seen between Sandeep and Meera, doesn't qualify you for funding, but it definitely gives you an opportunity to put your idea in front of people who are within the industry, fellow entrepreneurs, funding people who have the funds, who work for VC funds, etc., and test your idea against them. Get inputs. It also helps you through volunteering and networking to hone your soft skills, your professional skills. And I'm sure Sandeep, Gajendra, and Meera can add to how that has contributed to their development. So those skills also come in because of professional qualifications.
Okay. So Sandeep, you would agree that it's no longer finance; it's now only fintech. So that way, technology, being on top of technology is, becoming very, very important for finance professionals. So apart from the soft skills, which Aarti was telling us about, what kind of technology skills should finance professionals looking to venture out on their own equip themselves with?
So like what Aarti mentioned, right now, it's like not just one skill will get you there. In fact, being an entrepreneur is like being a Swiss Army knife in that sense. You have to have all kinds of tools and tackles in your arsenal because it is sometimes you may have different tasks to do. And the only thing that tech is doing to the world across not just finance, but any field in that matter, is it is driving change today. So whether it is tech today or whether it was something else before or something new comes in the future, these things will keep changing. So whatever can make a difference or a change opens up opportunities, but also threatens the incumbents. So that is where people should know enough about it to not get destroyed in the carnage that follows, and also be able to participate in the opportunities that follow. So technology is, yes, very, very critical, and technology has got many aspects to it. I personally have done blockchain courses before I delved into that tech thing, but you don't need to do it personally, I think. What you need to do is you need to understand what it is all about and what is the business opportunity it can unlock. So if you know the basics, I think that is enough. Having said that, not to discourage anybody, the deeper you go into any subject, and then if you go into multiple subjects together, the hybrid of that becomes a very potent weapon. So, like people have been doing algorithmic trading using Python, and they created a lot of money. But, again, these are short-term arbitrage plays that come in because then other people will start learning about it. So you cannot go deep into everything, but you need to be aware of what's moving in the world, what is moving in the world, which is the technology that can make an impact in the areas of your interest. And at least know enough about that to kind of capture those opportunities.
Okay. I thought I'll ask Gajendra about sales and marketing skills, because being an entrepreneur, you're almost doing everything on your own, and unless you have your clients, your business doesn't get moving. There's already a question from the audience about how to get your first clients and keep the pace of client accretions growing. So, Gajendra, would you tell us the secret of,
Right.
acquiring clients and adding to their number?
Sure. So Vardhini, Adi, when we started this business, there was this movie which I saw, and I would really encourage all the participants to also see this. It's available on YouTube. It's called One Idiot.
Ah, okay.
The name is One Idiot. It was directed by Amol Gupte, who directed Tare Zameen Par. And it was an educational film about how to create wealth and the power of compounding. So this 30-minute movie changed my life 10, 12 years back. And I decided that someday I would become one idiot too, before the age of 50, in fact. And, to kind of create a corpus of 100 crores and become one idiot. The idea of, following this was that if I want to create wealth for others, have I created the same wealth for myself in the ethical way? That was the whole idea. So there you got the story. Now the idea is to just go and tell this story to thousands of people in the world. You believe in this story, and then you want to just inspire others by this story. In India, we all love stories. Like that's why we are huge movie goers. Whether it is South, North, I think movies is one thing which unites all of us. And so through this, I used to do a lot of IAPs, investor awareness programs. I remember 11 years back, just when I ventured into this, we did an IAP for 700 business owners in Assam, in a place, a district called Jorhat. And that went for 4 hours. The people really liked it because there was somebody who was trying to explain these concepts, very difficult concepts, in a very simple manner, jargonless manner. So that's what I try to do. So in this business, if somebody has to be successful, I think one need to have a great listening skills too. Because when you go to the client, I think, the client would like to share a lot of things, rather than you trying to display your, skills that, this and that and options and beta and gamma. It's better to be a good listener. Let the client tell what he has the issues and problems. Because in this business, Vardhini, I've realized that, the strong relationship which you develop over with your clients over the years, you become their greatest buddies. There are things which they will only confide in you and not to any other family member, right? It will only happen when they trust you. And for that, you don't have to be a salesperson. You have to be just like a patient and a doctor, where you're, carefully listening to their problems and trying to give them a solution. So I think a great listening skills is there. You should be a great communicator. You should be able to communicate in no ambiguous terms, right? What you can do, what you cannot do. And that's why one important thing I've learned in this business is always to under-promise and over-deliver.
Okay.
While the world tries to over-promise on the returns, it's better to be conservative there, but, and give better performance over a period of time. These are some of the skills which I think will take you very far. If you can be a great orator, if you can, talk to the audience in their language, right? That's a big advantage, I would say.
Okay.
But then if I may add here, I think one of the key things, especially for entrepreneurial journey, even for employment in the investment management industry, is integrity and trust. More than in any other industry beyond, say, as the medical profession. The integrity and trust can make you the best salesperson in this industry.
Okay.
So if you manage your ability to be ethical, to manage your integrity well, and you are able to elicit trust from your client, you need not be a sales pitcher or a salesperson at all.
Okay.
I think I'm just paraphrasing what Gajendra said.
Okay.
100% agree with you. I think this is even, as Aarti mentioned, this is even more powerful than you may be the best salesperson in town, but I've seen when, in 2004, when this mis-selling was happening, all those men and women in suits and ties, they were they were doing the biggest mis-selling, because they would come and talk in very savvy languages, right? But the things they were doing were not good for the investors in the long term.
Okay.
So I think trust and integrity is the most powerful weapon.
But no one will deny the importance of having a network, isn't it? Because you readily need the network. You don't know how that network will help you being an entrepreneur. So Meera was earlier talking of bodies such as the TIE or FICCI and all that. So, Meera, so entrepreneurs, what are the opportunities for networking they have? Like how our SMEs or our bigger corporates do have industry bodies, isn't it? So what is there for entrepreneurs?
So yeah, so there are, the organizations like TIE, and there is also many of the incubators and accelerators and various programs where there are contests and others where you get to meet other entrepreneurs and often other investors, in some cases some corporates to whom you can also pitch and do your pilots and other things, right? I mean, these are depending on whether you're a B2B or a B2C, and build and one is networking for what, right? Like, is it networking to understand what is happening in the market? There is networking for funding and other purposes. There is networking to just exchange knowledge between other entrepreneurs, right? Because they understand you and you may get some good inspiration and tips from them, or find your co-founders and others as well. So there are different kinds of networking, and based on that you must kind of choose these different forums and go to the right one, right? Because you could be pretty overwhelmed by, you also need to do your job, right? Like if you're here and there in so many forums, so you be choosy on where you go to. If it's in Thai, you go to the fintech special interest group sort of thing, rather than like showing up in some like agri focused group, which is not going to serve your purpose in terms of networking. And at the risk of seeing us throwing a plug here, right? Like, the CFA Society India, for example, organizes various events with also, different focus, where you get to meet others who are in, similar boat. You could meet some investors and others, right? And just have this ideas that may spark some additional things for you, right? To if you listen to them, they could say, oh, what about that, right? Like, should I try that, and that kind of thing. And to Aarti's point, this ethical standing and trust is important, right? That you may network, but then people may be like, I don't know this person, right? I've met them here, I've met them there. That's not going to help, right? This loose interactions are just not going to cut it. So you must be seen with people who are seen as good professionals with good ethics and all of that. So the right networking is very important, and forums like the CFA Society India do provide that, right? In B2C. Yeah.
Okay. That's great. So, it's all nice to start off and be confident and all that, but a lot of people, end up, not succeeding. Not everyone becomes unicorns. Many people try out many ventures before they succeed. Some find new businesses to run, some don't, and all that. So I think Sandeep is best equipped to tell us, key learnings or do's and don'ts for entrepreneurs, because nobody succeeds right away. Very few succeed right away, isn't it?
No, absolutely. So everybody's journey is different.
Yeah.
And the most important thing is, don't compare your journey with anybody else. Like Meera earlier said, definitely, and Aarti and Gajendra will also say, first of all, you need to get your house in order before you jump onto the entrepreneurial journey. Because at the end of the day, we all need to eat as well. We need bread and butter, and, you have to have family commitments also to be met. So life stage at which you are getting into entrepreneurship is something that is also important at the end of the day. But, once that is sorted, then when you are entering into the entrepreneurial journey, you should not compare yourself with others. Because you can never, everybody's journey is different. And just becoming a unicorn is not the end objective or achievement that anybody should look at. You should have a satisfaction in what you're doing. So like what Gajendra said, he wanted to stop the mis-selling in the industry. There has to be a larger purpose behind what you are doing. While it looks, all apple pie and all that, but this is something that really helps. What is the problem that you're solving? Does it resonate emotionally with you as well? So that is something, if you have that as a base, then your entrepreneur journey will become much more enjoyable rather than just the pursuit of becoming a unicorn. So that kernel has to be there. Is there something that you are personally solving for the world at large, and what is it that gives you as a satisfaction because of doing that? Once that is there, then don't compare your journey with others. People have succeeded in their first journey. People have not succeeded even after multiple tries. So everybody's journey is different, but enjoy it as a fun journey. And always remember that, the world doesn't end with anything. So like, after 4 startups, 5 startups, I joined the corporate world back. but I still didn't enjoy it. I again came back to entrepreneurship.
Mm.
So things can always change. Don't think this is the end all and be all of whichever situation you are in today. Things will always kind of move around, and keep the journey on. It's always a journey. It's never a destination, in my opinion.
Okay, okay. So I thought I'll ask Gajendra on this, like, you know, to set up a sustainable career as an entrepreneur, to have a, you know, long runway for growth and all that, since it requires having multiple skills. You know, how much does having co-founders help in building a sustained business? Or, you know, does giving time frame to ventures, that you will try this venture out for 2 or 3 years and they test your ideas and then see and then give it up? So do having co-founders or giving time frames help in any way, Gajendra?
Yeah, Vardhini, I would say I've been very lucky in this aspect. You know, so we are one of the very rare families in India where in the same family you have 3 CFA charter holders. You know, and that too way back in 2008, 9, 10. So, and we all 3 worked in the financial services industry in domains. And then we all came and said, we all are facing the same problem, that mis-selling is happening and we need to do something about it. And one good thing was that, as Sandeep mentioned, you know, it's the purpose is bigger than money. I mean, I come from a, you know, business family background, and the only thing I could make in that business was money. But I decided to leave that and said, I want to do something which is much more, you know, larger. And I found my calling here. So I think, and luckily in wealth management, you don't require as much funding in other businesses. Like, unless you want to become a unicorn overnight and, like, you know, in shorter span of time. I think it's a great business. It's a compounding business, which means first 3-5 years, nothing happens. And then suddenly you see the J curve. Okay. All your efforts come together. So what I feel, yes, it's having co-founders help. In my case, my 3 brothers, you know, they all had different skill sets. So we could, you know, complement each other. Like, I was very good with IAPs, investor awareness programs. My brother was very good with back office and operations. You know, so it really helps. So I would suggest people, and sometimes what happens, you need somebody to vet your ideas too. You know, there are times in your life when you feel very miserable, things are not moving around. You need some kind of hand to support you in that journey. So yes, it helps. And secondly, in this business, I would strongly recommend that you need to have 3 to 5 years as a runway. And that's why I think Aarti also mentioned that if you start early in your life in this profession, because you have a long runway, you'll be benefiting from the power of compounding in not just clients' wealth creation journey, but in your journey as well. So when you are jumping into this business, Vardhini, and I don't know, many people are not aware, we earn our remuneration from mutual funds, which is like a trail commission, right? Only when the client grows over a period of time is our revenue grow. So it can take 3 to 5 years. So at least you should have a buffer period of, you know, that period wherein you are able to sustain your finances. You're not dipping into your, other reserves. If you can do that, I think, and one good thing is that in our business, the main capital is the human capital, right? So you have to continuously invest there. And that is why these programs like CFA, CFP, CIPM can really help the participants. Okay. But apart from that, yes, if you can give 3-5 years, I think I'm sure you'll be reasonably successful given the kind of demand supply gap we see in India.
Okay. So I thought I'll ask Aarti, like among the last questions, we're almost coming to the end of our discussion. So Aarti, if you see Business Line today, our page 1 story is on, job cuts in Ola. So, and then we have a nice graphic saying in 2022, what are all the retrenchments that have happened across unicorns in this year. So, as global liquidity dries up, there is talk of slowdown in funding for startups. And, we had COVID, which was a big event 2 years earlier. So how resilient is the investment management industry to these kind of events? And would you say that entrepreneurs are more vulnerable than their salaried counterparts?
Well, you answered the last part actually. If you see that the unicorns and the job cuts are happening, that means that employment is as vulnerable today as entrepreneurship, if not more. So there is no security around employment anymore, anywhere. So why leave your destiny in the hands of somebody else and let somebody else fire you?
Okay,
If you
so
are an entrepreneur, the ability to hire or fire is stand in your hands, not in somebody else's hands.
okay.
So you decide whether you want to hire others or hire yourself, or fire others or fire yourself, not somebody else. So I think that is the biggest advantage of entrepreneurship, that you are your own boss.
But just to add to that, Aarti, when we have to pay out the salaries, first the employees get the salaries, the entrepreneurs
Then
get the
the
salaries.
gets the
They never get salaries.
then
They will. So that's a flip side of entrepreneurship.
that's the flip side. Both sides are there, but pros and cons exist for both of them, and they are equal. I cannot say, like when we were young, our parents used to tell us, get a government job. There is a lot of security there. I do not see me telling my children that. It's not because it doesn't exist even there. And secondly, we don't want to be curtailed, or they might not want to be curtailed in the world within the limits of an employment in a certain sector. Entrepreneurship offers you that scalability and the ability to be agile, to move across and even hedge your risks better, I would say. For example, if you are working in a certain, your entrepreneur, like Sandeep saw, he has moved from one entrepreneurial journey to another. You start an idea, it works, or if it is before time or after time, or if there is a challenge because of a situation, external circumstance like a pandemic, you can come up with another idea and move on to it. As long as you are resilient and you have built sufficient bridges to cover any personal financial responsibilities or risks that you may have. So the first thing for an entrepreneur, apart from the competencies others have said, is the ability to manage your own finances and that of your enterprise. If you do that well, then you are as resilient as any other individual or any other enterprise. In fact, a few weeks ago, we had a meeting with Invest India, which is a forum and a function set up by the government of India to fund entrepreneurs and support them. And the first question that their head asked us is, how can you help us to educate these entrepreneurs about their own financial management? So for an entrepreneur, if they are able to manage their enterprise and individual wealth well, then they are as secure as any other human being, if not more.
Okay.
That is what I would say.
Okay. So I thought we will take two questions from the audience. Some interesting questions have come up. One, Mr. Sitaram is asking us, there's a lot of compliance requirements nowadays for all kinds of businesses. So how does one, how does an entrepreneur equip himself or herself with these skills? Anyone can take this. Yeah,
I can take that. See, I think I always believe in our industry, self-regulation is the biggest compliance one can have, right? If you yourself believe that this is for the ultimate good of the consumer, I think, the regulatory compliances are much lower in that sense. If you set that bar high. Now, the best way I think is that if I am able to show my portfolio to my investors and says, look, this is where I'm putting my hard-earned money, I don't think, I don't need to prove anything further in that case.
Yeah, but the paperwork is there, isn't it?
Yes,
a lot of people.
Of course, I agree. So thankfully today there are systems and, technologies in places like, companies like Sandeep's help us, solve these issues. So you have that kind of checkbox approach, right? Whether you've done these things, for your client, and this can be recorded online and automatically. So yes, but you need to be in kind of touch with the latest compliances. You need to be aware what are they, and you should not be falling on the wrong side of it. So and of course, when your team grows, you can have a compliance officer too who can oversee that function. But in the early days, yes, you have to wear all the hats by yourself, I would say.
No, absolutely. To add to that, today we are 100+ people company, but initial days when we started out, you have to do all your compliances yourself. There is no escape to that, because and then you learn that way as well. So that is one part of it. And second, to add on, now because of technology, it is also disrupting regulations. So there is a reg tech companies out there that create a lot of value add. So we use a lot of that. We are a digital first company, right? From your Aadhaar signature to your submission of forms online to, eKYC, everything. There is a whole ecosystem coming up out there, which is making compliances more automated as well.
Yeah, I would add, if Sitaraman finds a very specific compliance issue as bothersome, he
Mm.
can actually create a new startup trying to solve that, right? Because that would really help everybody. So, yeah.
Okay, so there's Sindhu who is asking us, what are the gaps that you see in India in the investment management industry? Big gaps, yawning gaps, which can be explored by startups.
To begin with, I think Meera gave this idea of RegTech. I think that's
Mm.
a big area of requirement or gap,
Mm.
where most in regular industries are working on tech to support client solutions more than on supporting compliance and regulation.
Mm.
So definitely there is scope there.
Mm.
The other area is wealth management. You have example, Gajendra can tell us more about it. That's another area where there is going to be a significant gap in terms of people who have the competence and ability to provide financial advice and manage the wealth of individuals as our middle class grows, as our earning class grows further.
Mm.
And also because a lot of the professionals that our industries are creating today
Mm.
do not have the time apart from knowledge to manage their wealth.
Mm.
So that's going to be a very big area with a significant gap in terms of entrepreneurial opportunities as well as employment in the future.
Mm.
I think these are two. The fintech, of course, offers many options and solutions.
Mm.
It is not something that I believe, and Sandeep can throw more light on it, is not a place which is going to take away jobs. It's in fact going to create more entrepreneurial opportunities as well as employment opportunities. Developing tech solutions that solve certain problems within the industry or connect consumers to distributors or investors is the area again which will offer significant opportunity for employment
Okay.
as well as for an entrepreneurship in the investment management industry per se. The fourth area is as entrepreneurs grow, according to me, one idea is that the number of entrepreneurs who will require support to grow their enterprise, to get access to funds, require incubators, VC funding. So if somebody was able to garner wealth from across and multiple platforms and become a VC fund or create a funding opportunity or an advisory opportunity for entrepreneurs and startups like Meera talked about, that's another great area for where there is an entrepreneurial opportunity. I'll leave it to the others to add to that.
Oh, I think I'm just reminded. We just saw a flare up of a cryptocurrency vault being missing, and there were a lot of financial influencers who were being blamed for this. And I could easily connect to what Aarti said. They didn't have the educational qualification to back this thing. Of course, they had a lot of followers, and they could influence them by. It was kind of a misselling to my mind. They didn't have any skin in the game. No knowledge, no ethics also in that sense. There was a clear conflict of interest, which they didn't disclose. And a large section of population got kind of, influenced by that, and they end up kind of losing a lot of money. So this is where I think we need to, this is where I think a lot of gap is there, as Aarti mentioned. People have no knowledge. The world is becoming more and more complex. We don't have time. You require somebody, a trusted person who is both having the competence and the integrity to take on this role. And this is a very responsible profession, right? And that's why this cannot be just you. When you're becoming an entrepreneur, you just can't think of yourself that can I become a unicorn or can I create a lot of money? Finally, I only believe is that it has to be for the ultimate benefit of society. If as a society we don't progress, if it doesn't help to the larger sections of the people, I think it's really not worth having any desirable impact, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just, quickly add, to Gajendra's thing, right? So in investment management, there are lots of people who do require good investment advice. What is stopping is, the skill set of the people who are offering the advice. Trust the other person will have on this, right? I may be very skilled, but if the client views me as having some vested interest or other thoughts, then it's not going to work, right? Just having skill is not going to cut it. And then the third is, at what cost is it coming to that customer, right? I may be the best, they would trust me, but if I'm charging them an arm and a leg, that's not going to work for a whole section of population. One I would like to highlight, while there are many others, entrepreneurs can go at it from this lens that, right, am I offering the best advice? Is there a gap there? Is there a trust gap, and how am I helping bridge it? Third is the cost gap. One section that is usually not attended to is the MSMEs, right? While calling oneself a startup is getting some support and attention and whatnot, anyone who's a bit of a more regular MSME business also needs all this. They also need to keep up. They also need to grow. And to Gajendra's point, a lot of the economy is run by the MSMEs, and there is a huge gap there. So if anyone's looking for opportunities, provided it is delivered with all of these three things being met, right? It should not be confusing them or putting them at more risk. Yeah.
Okay, I think we've had a good 1 hour and 5 minutes of discussion. I hope our audience really got a lot of value additions. So thank you very much to the panelists for taking time off, and thank you to the audience for logging in as well. Have a good day.
Thank you, Vardhini.
Thank
We
you.
thoroughly enjoyed the discussion.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. See you.
Bye.